Hello and welcome to Castles and Legends. We are at Dover Castle today. We have Storm Babette raging outside, but that is not going to stop us, so let's go have a look around and find out about the history.
Dover Castle is a medieval fortress located in the Kent town of Dover, England. It is often referred to as the Key to England due to its strategic location on the White Cliffs of Dover, overlooking the English Channel. Throughout its history, Dover Castle has served various purposes, including military defence, royal residence, and a symbol of English strength. When Julius Caesar and the Romans first landed in Britain in 55 BC, they knew the strategic importance of Dover, realising it as the closest point in mainland Britain to mainland Europe. After Emperor Claudius's invasion of Britain in AD 43, the Romans built a fort at Dover, which served the Roman fleet, which was responsible for patrolling the Eastern Channel. To guide the approaching ships at night, the Romans constructed 2 lighthouses, one within the fort and one on top of the western heights. These lighthouses were octagonal, built from ragstone, and amazingly, the one located at the site of the castle still stands today. After the Romans left Britain in AD 410, the fort of Dover transformed into a fortified Saxon town. In around AD 1000, the Church of St. Mary in Castro was built next to the remaining lighthouse, which was used by the church as a chapel and bell tower. The church also still stands today, but has been modified and restored over the centuries. In 1066, William the Conqueror was victorious at the Battle of Hastings, which marked the beginning of the Norman conquest of England. William went to Dover that same year and soon saw the strategic importance of the previous Saxon settlement. Although there is no evidence left today, it is likely that William ordered the construction of a wooden motte and bailey castle. It wasn't until William's great-grandson, Henry II, became king did we start to see the construction of a truly formidable stone fortress. King Henry II's reign lasted over 35 years, from 1154 to 1189, but it wasn't until the 1180s that he ordered the construction of the castle that still stands today. The building of the castle was carried out by Henry's engineer Maurice and consisted of the inner bailey and its towers, a partial outer bailey, and the huge and very impressive tower keep, which stands at just over 80 feet tall. Once finished, it was considered one of the most advanced castles at the time in Europe. Henry's main reason for this very expensive and lavish transformation wasn't in fact for the benefit of protecting his kingdom, but instead was to restore and protect his reputation and respect after the events of the infamous murder of Thomas Becket a decade earlier. Thomas Becket was a close friend of Henry. He had appointed him Chancellor of England. When the position of Archbishop of Canterbury became vacant, Henry was very enthusiastic to appoint Becket into the role while continuing his existing role of Chancellor. Henry thought that with his close friend in this dual appointment, the crown would be able to exercise greater authority over the church. Becket did not share his friend's ideas. He resigned his position of Chancellor and instead devoted his time and lifestyle to the church. This caused significant tensions between the two. The feud between Becket and King Henry II escalated, and on one evening Henry was overheard angrily exclaiming, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent, troublesome priest?" 4 of Henry's knights took this outburst literally and set off on a mission to fulfill their king's wishes. When the knights arrived at Canterbury Cathedral, Becket refused arrest, and while clinging onto a pillar in the cathedral, the knights murdered him. It was never known if Henry directly instructed the knights, but the result of Becket's death hit hard with many people, including Henry. Becket was considered a martyr, and Henry's reputation was in tatters. Facing a considerable political crisis, a guilty Henry realised his need for repentance. Becket was made a saint by the Pope in 1173, and Canterbury Cathedral became a very important pilgrimage destination. Devoting himself to St. Becket, Henry went about rebuilding Dover Castle on a huge scale during the last 10 years of his reign, realising it was on the pilgrim route to Becket's shrine in Canterbury. He poured more money into Dover Castle than any other castle in England, with a lot of expense going into the living space. Residential rooms were decorated and furnished quite magnificently, so that the castle could host important visitors making the journey. During the reign of Henry's son, King John, lands in France, which included the Duchy of Normandy, were lost to the French king, Philip II. Hostile territory now faced Dover from the other side of the Channel, so in response to this, John extended the castle's existing outer bailey, building up the outer curtain walls with towers. On top of his military failures in France, King John was renowned for being cruel and vindictive, and because of this, he was at odds with a group of rebellious barons who could no longer stand for his poor leadership. In 1215, a document was issued, known as the Magna Carta, which was an attempt to remedy the situation. It essentially listed a series of clauses that would preserve the rights and liberties and prevent the king from exploiting his power. While the Magna Carta was agreed, John soon broke it, which resulted in warfare breaking out between the king and the rebellious barons, known as the First Barons' War of 1215 to 1217. During the war, the French prince and heir to the French throne, Louis, was invited to England by the barons and asked to take the English crown from John. Louis agreed and joined the barons, who quickly took control of several locations, including London, Canterbury and Rochester. Due to its strategic importance, Dover would also need to be taken, so Louis laid siege to the castle in July 1216. The castle's garrison, led by its castellan, Hubert de Burgh, held firm and successfully repelled the attacks. Louis didn't give up though, and the French came up with the idea of gaining entrance to the castle by tunnelling through the soft chalk rock under the foundations to weaken or collapse them, a technique known as undermining. With this, they did expose the one real weakness of the castle, as the French successfully brought down one of the towers of the northern gatehouse, allowing them to get into the outer bailey. However, the strength of the garrison soon forced the French out again, and some quick repairs using timber allowed the English to seal the breach. The castle held out for 3 long months, and by October 1216, a thwarted Louis negotiated a truce. During the era of the Tudors, the castle was well maintained and utilised. When Henry VIII was at the throne, the Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain, Charles V, came to England in May 1522. Charles, who was considered one of the most powerful rulers in Europe at the time, met with Henry at Dover Castle, and during his time in England, the kings formalised an agreement to invade France. What transpired, however, was a poorly coordinated invasion, which resulted in each blaming the other for not honouring their agreements. In the late 1530s to early 1540s, Henry ordered the construction of a number of artillery forts that were built in and around Dover and the south coast. Dover Castle itself was added to, with the construction of a moat bulwark, the first known fixed gun position at the castle. During the years around the turn of the 19th century, England was at war with France, and Napoleon had his sights on Dover, establishing a huge army dedicated to the invasion of England. Dover Castle needed to be prepared. Above ground, the castle received a whole range of updates, which included a new raised cannon platform, new bastions with cannons, modernisations to the spur, and reinforced roofs. Underground new tunnels and barracks were dug out. Another significant problem that needed to be overcome was the time it took to get troops down from the castle high up on the cliffs down to the beach to face an invasion force. To overcome this, the grand shaft was designed, a huge stairwell cut into the rock that went down from the cliff tops down 140 feet. All of these modernizations were never tested, as Napoleon was never able to launch his invasion due to the Channel blockade of the Royal Navy, and by 1805 the threat had diminished. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 saw Dover and its castle play a significant role. The town had a garrison and training camps for over 10,000 men, while the castle acted as the headquarters of the military. At the start of World War II in 1939, Dover Castle once again played a crucial role in operations. The tunnels built during the Napoleonic Wars were still secretive and were reused to home command centres for the Army, Navy and Air Force, as well as provide shelter to soldiers and civilians from bombing raids. In 1940, from these tunnels, Vice Admiral Ramsay planned and conducted the evacuation of over 338,000 Allied soldiers from the beaches and harbour of Dunkirk, codenamed Operation Dynamo. During the subsequent years of the war, 2 additional levels of tunnels were added. The first, called an X, contained space for living quarters and a hospital. The second level was a communication centre which purposely transmitted military disinformation to confound the Germans. This was key to the run-up to the D-Day Normandy landings, as false transmissions were broadcast that told of Dover being the launch point of the operation. World War II ended and the threat of invasion had gone, but a new threat soon emerged, the Cold War. In the 1960s, predominantly the lowest level of tunnels, called Dumpy, were used as one of 12 regional seats of government. The purpose of these were to provide the necessary means to administer each region in the event of nuclear attack. With Dover Castle and its tunnels being situated in the chalk landscape, it was soon realised that with it being a soft, porous rock, any radioactive water from such an attack would eventually seep into the tunnels. Today, Dover Castle is managed by English Heritage and open to the public as a tourist attraction. It remains a scheduled monument and is also a Grade 1 listed building. Thanks for watching today. I do hope you've enjoyed our video. If you have, please click that like button and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you again very soon.